So I have always been a huge George Lucas fan, Star Wars, all that good stuff. As you can see from the background, we've got Darth Vader here, C-3PO there. There's a stormtrooper just over my shoulder, aiming to take a shot at the back of my head, and an RC-3PO in the background. And if I tilt over slightly, we'll see another figure of Vader right there. Huge fan of George Lucas, not just Star Wars, but George Lucas in general. And before Star Wars was even a thing, before he had even written the first movie, he made American Graffiti. So Legends, it's been one of those days where I've planned to do so many different things and none of it has happened, but I did get a chance to sit down again and watch American Graffiti once more. This is an amazing little movie that I haven't seen in quite a few years. I've had it on DVD for a lifetime, and I don't know what I was doing the other day. I was looking for something online and something popped up in reference to American Graffiti, and I'm like, I need to watch that again. This was actually released in 1973. $140 million made at the box office. The budget for it was only $150,000. And this was, if memory serves, George Lucas's second movie after leaving film school. And the first movie he did was THX. Can't remember offhand the number behind it, but it was like a feature-length version of his student film, and it didn't go down well, if memory serves. It's all on there's a making of American Graffiti, and there's the whole background of where the movie came from, and basically the film that he did previous to this, THX, whatever the number was, can't recall offhand, was a bit of a failure, actually a major failure, and the people that funded the film actually demanded their money back. And Francis Ford Coppola was part of the production company that made the movie. They were all in film school together, and when that movie bombed and they had to give back all the money that they were gave to make the film in the first place, Coppola actually, George Lucas was an incredibly experimental filmmaker when he was in college, when he left college and made this movie. And Coppola actually challenged him to make a silly little comedy movie, and off Lucas went, and we ended up with American Graffiti. This movie is basically about cruising culture back in 62. Where did I get 73 at? That was the release date of the movie, sorry about that. It's set in the summer of 62, and it's the story of a group of friends on their last night before they're heading off to college. It stars Ronny Howard, Richard Dreyfuss, Charles Martin Smith, Paul Le Mat, and it's about these friends that cruise the streets of a small town in California while a mysterious disc jockey, Wolfman Jack, spins classic rock and roll tunes. I'm actually reading the synopsis off my phone here. Yes, it's the last night before their grown-up lives begin, and there's a lot of trouble that they get themselves into in this. We all have these different stories. It's all set within one night. Ron Howard's character Steve is toying with the idea at the beginning of the movie that him and his girlfriend should see other people when he leaves town, and he's all up for going, and that starts a whole argument and fallout between them throughout the rest of the movie. Interestingly, Harrison Ford is in this movie, and I think that's originally why I was so interested in seeing American Graffiti, because I didn't know that he was not being considered for the role in Star Wars because he had acted in American Graffiti. When Star Wars eventually came around, Lucas didn't want to recast someone that he already worked with before, so Harrison Ford was off the cards at the beginning, but he was brought in to read lines in Star Wars and eventually won the role. But that's not American Graffiti. That's later on. Richard Dreyfuss is in here as the guy that's doubting his future. He doesn't know if he should leave town or not. And him and Ron Howard's character don't really come to blows over it, but Ron Howard's character is like, we're going plain and simple. One of the funniest characters in it is Terry the Toad, played by Charles Martin Smith. He's like the nerd of the group, and he goes on the fun adventure in this movie. Ron Howard says, I'm going to give you my hot rod to look after when I'm at college. And he's all excited about this. He's finally got a car to cruise in, and he goes off out looking to pick up a girl, which he does, and he ends up in all these weird situations where he's trying to impress this girl by going to like an off license and trying to buy alcohol, or get someone else to buy the alcohol for him, pretending he's pretending he hasn't got his ID with him, and getting people to, eventually when it doesn't work out for him buying the alcohol, he tries to get someone else to do it for him. The car gets stole at a point during the movie. There's a bit of an adventure trying to get it back, and yes, there's a lot of comedy moments with him. One of the most interesting stories in this for me was between the character of John, Paul the Mat, and Mackenzie Phillips' character. John is out, and he's like the king cruiser. He's the guy that's undefeated in street races and whatnot. And Harrison Ford, his character in the movie, is trying to track him down the whole time to get a drag race with him to see who's the best. But throughout the majority of the film, before him and Harrison Ford get together for this drag race, there's a character that jumps into the car with him, and she was in a car with a group of girls. He's trying to flirt with them. They're driving up in the streets, it's all cruising culture, and none of the girls is interested in jumping in with him, but they're saying that one of the girl's sisters will go with him. He doesn't know it at this point, but it's a girl that's in early high school. She's far too young to be out. She's the bratty little sister of the girls in the car, and they trick him and letting him take her as a passenger throughout the movie. That was a beautiful little... There's no romance that happens between them. There's a big age difference. He's in his last year of school. It's the last day of summer before the college year starts. She's like or just coming into high school, and he spends the most of the movie trying to dump her, get rid of her, sort of thing, get her out of the car, find out where she lives, take her home and whatnot. And the friendship that these two characters build by the end of the film, or by the end of her stretch in the film, as such, she disappears about a half hour before the end of the movie, or what seemed like a half hour. But whenever he finally gets her home, it's done beautifully. Lucas, give him all the grief you want about his storytelling, his writing and whatnot. Whenever he does something fantastic, it is really, really good, and it's tastefully done. Don't get me wrong, there's an age difference between these two characters. John doesn't want to take advantage of this girl. At the same time, she's trying to act older than what she is, and by the end of their time in the film, she kind of realizes that she's trying to grow up too quickly and whatnot, and he finally gets her back home, and it's just a sort of tearjerker of a moment, but is a good emotional moment for me in that movie. By the end of the movie, Ron Howard's girlfriend, they've had that big a fallout. They've broken up, and she wants him to stay, but she doesn't want to tell him to stay. But she goes out and ends up in Harrison Ford's car with him, and when him and John get together for the drag race, she's the passenger in Ford's car, and that pretty much culminates the movie there in the final drag race. Richard Dreyfuss throughout the movie again is the guy that's questioning, should he leave is he ready to grow up, sort of a thing. And he goes to see this disc jockey that, you know, everybody in the town that's cruising. The whole film is pretty much takes place almost during the show of Wolfman Jack. And the interesting thing about that character is he's not actually a character in real life. He's a DJ. Wolfman Jack, that's the DJ that George Lucas would have listened to whenever he was a teenager growing up and cruising, just like the characters within this movie. So it's a cool little touch that he actually got the real DJ to be in the movie. And he has got a persona that everyone, you know, nobody actually knows where he lives or broadcasts from, or, you know, that they all think that there's all these stories about where he broadcasts from as an illegal station. At one point, Mackenzie Phillips' character says, you know, she heard that he broadcasts from a plane that just circles all night long. It's all these crazy stories. And Richard Dreyfuss, throughout the whole movie, he's trying to track down this blonde that he's seen in a white Thunderbird, and he actually goes to a radio station at one point to get a request read out on the station to see if he can get hold of this girl. He's seen her countless times in the movie but can't. You know, something happens that keeps him away from her. Most notably, a gang. That's a whole nother story for the movie. Don't want to destroy it for you, but the Wolfman Jack sequence in the movie is actually so well done. Like, he sees this guy in the radio station, he talks to him. I want to talk to Wolfman Jack, and the guy's like, you know, Wolfman's not here, and he actually puts a tip into the machinery, and you know, between the songs he's mixing records, and then he mixes this tip and along with it, and it's a voiceover from Wolfman Jack, and he's like, you know, every few days the Wolfman will come in here and tell me all these stories about where he went. And this is where Dreyfuss kind of gets the nudge he needs to go in the direction he wants to go in, because this character, this DJ that's fallen in for the Wolfman, tells him all these stories about what the Wolfman has done and what not. And Dreyfuss is like, you know, why don't you go and do similar sort of things? And he's like, you know, I'm not a young man anymore. And that's kind of like a turnaround for Dreyfuss. But as he's leaving the station after giving him the request, and the guy's like, you know, I'll try and get this done, I'll see if I can get hold of him. While he's leaving, he hears the voice of Wolfman Jack, and he looks through a window from outside the DJ booth where this guy's at, and he sees the guy talking into the microphone, and the Wolfman Jack voice, turns out he was talking to the actual DJ the whole time, but the guy was trying to hold up the persona that everybody thinks of him. By the end of the movie, we've had this big drag race between Harrison Ford and this other guy, and yes, everybody gets their closure within the movie. Not so much the Dreyfuss character. He does actually end up getting in contact with this girl, but not in the way he wants to. So by the end of the movie, Dreyfuss decides he's going to head off to university. He makes his decision, and the indecisive side of him is gone. Ron Howard's character, on the other hand, at the beginning of the movie, who was all, you know, fired up to get out of the town, go to university, start to grow up, him and the girlfriend actually decide they're going to take an extra year together before he leaves. So by the end of the movie, he stays, Dreyfuss goes. Absolutely fantastic. I don't want to ruin it anymore for you, and I'm just going to message in here on the computer, so I need to go and sort that out. So if you haven't seen American Graffiti, you need to go and do it ASAP, and if you have seen it, let me know what you think about it in the comments below.